What the heck is he doing here? He's taking a bath on top of the... Today, we're going to see what we can learn from the top FNCS Invitational teams, BL, Seti, and Cammy, and then Vino and Queasy. The first thing that I learned from watching these guys, and pretty much everyone in the FNCS Invitational, is how important it is to claim high ground in the early game. Whether it be getting on top of a mountain, getting on top of a balloon, getting up there quickly so that you don't miss opportunities to get tags on people as they're rotating by. At the start of the game, Seti would be up on high ground looking for tags, while Cammy is still farming the mats. They wanted to get at least one person up there so they're not missing out on these opportunities. This first game is literally just textbook. They pulled first moving zone straight down their tarp, so they basically had max mats going into second moving, which that's even crazier in these lobbies because most of the teams are going to be griefed. So what they do is they pad up to be the second to high ground team and then just are slowly chopping away at high ground, getting ahead, spraying at height, getting ahead, spraying at height, making them shambles. And they wait for the perfect opportunity. It was so free right here. This is the type of awareness that this team has that most people don't. They were paying attention to high ground the whole time, and the very second that high ground kind of dropped on top of their builds, they immediately cranked up and they had free height. Even though they weren't on high ground the whole time, they were constantly in control of it. They go for height because I think the reason was because they were like on their builds.
Oh yeah.
They're like, yeah, they're full out. Next game, we're checking out Vino, and they were alphaing height from the very start here. It's a heavy mountain zone, and so I think they were just trying to stay elevated the whole time, and it made it so free for them. Something crazy they do here that I've never thought to do is heavy stagger in the zone. They were able to get max mats by going down to that, and they're able to like pad later than everybody else. That way they're like pretty much the only team in the air, and they can just land on height. When there's tons of other teams, if you land on height, you might get 50-50'd on height. I think that's one reason why they do that, but the main reason was probably the mats. They end up literally using no materials here because they just reuse another pad and then re-land on height. So they're going into second moving with max mats on high ground. So free. One thing they do is they crank up extra high, that way no padders can land on them. They're above all the padders. And then something Ken and I always wondered about holding height in these earlier moving zones is how should you be timing your sprays? Should you be double spraying second high ground? And what we noticed Vino doing in these games was they would both be looking at different people. They're not just double spraying one team in these early moving zones. They're trying to make sure that they're holding everybody off high ground. If you focus too much on one team, some other team might crank up or sneak up on you. The only time they will double spray is if a team is literally cranking up in full contestant. But for the most part, it's like they're trying to just defend their territory in these early zones. But almost immediately as the third moving zone appears, that's when he starts going down and getting a little bit more active. They start to look for kills because they know pretty much everybody is almost shambles at this point. This ended up being one of the freest dubs of the whole entire FNCS Invitational. Now we're skipping to another one of Seti's dubs. First off, he's like really good at setting up pads in a safe way. Notice how he sets this up. He edits the cone sideways and then places a wall on top so height can't shoot him. It's little things like this that really separate them. Honestly, for the most part of these zones, they were just like full tarping everything. In these high tier lobbies, it seems like they don't want to take a single risk. If they have mats, they're not going to be like trying to cheap out and go for sprint rotates. They're just full building everything. The only time they aren't building is when they're padding. They ended up getting a refresh here, but replay mode was lagging, so I couldn't see how. But it's 100% because they have a whole tarp to frag through. They've pretty much gone through all of their hard mats, but you can see they're already top 5. They literally got one refresh and it managed to get them all the way to top 5. And now they're just playing their wood rather than their hard mats and trying to get a refresh for the win. They get more refreshes, then it's a 1v2 and the recording lags, but they win. It was just textbook, staying on good layers, finding refreshes through their tarp, and then finishing strong. Back over to Vino and Queasy, of course, first moving zone, they are just padding the high ground once again. This time I noticed them doing something interesting. So they're on 4 floors and they build low walls, so if somebody lands on them, they can just chop them out pretty easy. And then just like last time, from high ground, they just reuse pads all the way to zone, so they save their mats until the second moving. And then at the start of second moving, they just crank up so high so that padders have a hard time landing on them. It's just textbook. They do the same thing every time. Throughout this second moving zone, a lot of the time, Vino is looking into the storm to make sure nobody's doing a heal off play to build up on top of them, but they're also just shooting at anybody who looks like they could start to build up on high ground. Again, they're just holding their territory. That way they can use that territory later in the game. And then third moving zone is again when Vino starts to get a little bit more active, but they're still playing safe. They have the high ground. They're not going to take too many risks. And then this is some good zone awareness. He knows there's 4 teams and there's a couple solos, so somebody's probably going to be healing off in Storm, especially since there's not that many builds underneath them, so he gets a free kill there. All these games just look so textbook, bro. It looks so easy, but you know there's so much preparation that goes into this. To end it off, we're checking out the last 2 dubs from Seti and Cammy. The first part of this endgame, they literally padded 4 times, so we're just skipping to the end of the padding. Because they padded so much, they have so many mats, so if I am going to guess correctly, I think they're just going to full build everything here. I've noticed a lot, obviously they want to make use of their wood builds, but when they're full tarping, they don't want to build too much in wood, so usually he'll just build 2 boxes in wood and then switch back to hard mats. He doesn't overdo it with the wood, and he usually ends up with extra wood at the end of the game, but at least he's not getting focused for building in wood too much. Every single time he's built in wood, it's been 2 boxes, and then back to hard mats. But you can see this whole endgame, they really haven't gone for kills. Cammy got 1, but it was just a kill to Storm. They didn't even get the refresh. They've just been full building this entire game once again, just like last time. Honestly, the hard part of these lobbies is getting to endgame with a lot of mats, because getting Surge without getting griefed is so difficult. But if you manage to get max mats in endgame and can use some pads like safely, it's just over. Like, you just full build everything and it's free, it looks like. But at the end of the game here, they know they either need to make a play for high ground or low ground, or else they're gonna lose. And they recognize that Height had just finished fighting, so they take advantage of that, go for Height, and take it from them while they're not expecting it, while they just finished a fight and are trying to get back on their feet. It was just free high ground because they timed it right. They were patient, didn't rush it, and just took it at the perfect time. After they took the high ground here, all they had to do was spray down, push the previous Height team onto the low ground team to fight each other, and it causes so much chaos on low ground. It goes all the way from 5 teams being up to just Height, a duo, and then low ground, a solo, Scented. After watching these games, like, it's so obvious, Kenvins and I need to practice learning when to actually go for high ground. That's the biggest thing I've noticed out of these people, is that 1, they know how to hold it from the start of a moving zone, and 2, Seti's team just knows when to take it at the perfect time. But yeah, you can see it's just a free 2v1 against Scented. Last game from Cammy and Seti. At the very start here, they're doing something interesting that I never thought to do. This is such a good way to look for Surge. They don't actually need Surge. I think they're just looking kills into grief. But notice how they look out the front of their tarp here. They pulled the first moving zone, and so all the first moving zone padders are going to be landing in front of them. So they set up a safe peak, their top is blocked, and they have a perfect angle to just tag up everybody who padded first. And then on top of that, before the moving zone even really starts for them griefing Height here sets them up to take Height later. And then the way they take high ground this game is just so good. Constant pressure, just like the first game that we checked out. They tarp ahead, get to front side, immediately place a ramp outside their box and start spraying up. They're typically staying in upper layer in the mid game while they decide which is better. Are they going to go for high ground or are they going to go for low ground this game? And it's typically going to be high ground. But you can see right here when they're taking high ground, they just time it perfectly, spray the same part, the weak part of the tarp, chop them out, and it's just a free kill. The reason it was so free? Constant pressure. They played this whole tourney so well, and I don't think anybody deserves it more than them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.